Okay. Is that good enough?
Yes.
Okay. Is that this?
Hear that? Yeah. Try turning it off. Yeah. Maybe can everyone hear Venerable Tendron? Do you want to do a test?
Oh yeah, I can,
Without the mic or?
yeah, but I turned it back on. Is it doing it now?
No.
Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's hard for me to tell because I'm so close to it, so I can hear it.
You moved it. Smart man.
Oh, yeah.
Good plan. Okay. I am so hot. Is anybody else hot today? I am sweating. Is the humidity higher? Gee whiz. Okay. So what's a good thing to do when you arrive and you sit down? Here. No ideas at all. Check your posture.
Make sure no one's in the seat you're about to sit in.
Very good to be mindful of your space.
Take a few deep breaths. Do breathing meditation to help you arrive in the present moment.
Excuse me, I have a cough drop. What do the deep breaths do?
I think they help you. They give you something to concentrate on. Find my mind, and then they also physically help me relax the body. Maybe the heart rate's elevated or the mind's moving rapidly. So
It helps you relax. It helps you be aware of where you are, relax a moment, not be carrying around the story that you walked in the room with. Start a new story. It's not like we go long without a story. What else can we do? Yep.
Stay alone.
Stay alone.
Say hello.
Say hello.
Yes.
Yes, you can be friendly. Not a bad plan. Or a small group. Everybody know each other? Anybody know each other? Introduce yourselves to each other. Say hi.
Hi, I'm Jack.
That's Jack. That's Lou. That's Anne behind Lou. That's Anthony over here. Or do you go by Anthony here? Okay. That's Steve on the cushion, brave man. That's Ron in the Jets t-shirt. Lou? No, that's Lou. Rick, Jim, Roy. One day, Roy.
Next week.
Yeah, maybe.
I'll put it on.
Mm-hmm. Randy. Roy, Randy. Ron, Roy, and Randy. Stay like that for the. Yep. Gisela. Tatmo. Morgan. Nick. Dylan. Margaret. Tendron. Jack again. Here's Elaine. Nana. Vanessa. Don. Hi, Don. Hi, Tal. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Gina. Hi, Gabrielle. That's not Gabrielle. I watched something with Gabrielle as a character. Graciela. Esther and Christina. Okay. So we're going to think a little bit about equanimity. So some of the people in this room are strangers. Except now you have a guess at their name. So we want to think about whether or not there's really You know, what does it mean to say a stranger?
Somebody you don't know.
Okay, somebody you don't know. Is that entirely true? Why? Who said no? Okay, Ron, elaborate.
It's got fears, it's got the mental attitudes, that certain thing. We're exactly the same. In a lot of ways, we are the same.
Okay, so we all have differing mental attitudes. We all have something else you said, but that we have these differences, but basically we're all the same.
Suffering.
Because we're sentient beings, we all suffer and we all want to be happy. What else?
People can rebirth.
Well, if you believe in rebirth, but what can you know? You don't know whether people believe in rebirth or not. That's something you have to know someone a little bit, right? Because that's a different mental attitude towards different things. Yep.
Kind of like putting it on them that you haven't said hi yet.
Okay. Is there someone down here? Down here means, you know, not the hell realms, just the Zoom realm. Anyway. It's a separate realm. It's not a separate realm. It's a desire realm, nonetheless. Yes, Anne.
In the context of we are not strangers, you know, I can go by vibrations.
Oh, that's cool. I'm not one of those people. I am so not in tune energetically. It's kind of sad and pathetic, but that's the way it is. Well, that's cool. So, yes.
We are the same species.
We're the same species, okay? So that tells us that we have functioning that's very similar.
We all have different backgrounds.
We have different backgrounds. That's what a difference. We're looking at how, in what way people aren't really strangers, especially right now in this room. What's one of the things we share? Oh, come on.
The same air.
Is we sharing the same air. Why? We're in the same class together. So we have a similar interest. We don't know what the different, you know, motivation is, but, you know, most of us don't like to sit on cushions. Yep.
Whether the other person believes in reincarnation or not, if I look at everybody, they might bother.
Yeah. I mean, that's, but, you know, but if you take that in. So these are the kind of things you can be thinking about when you come in, you sit down and thinking about the other people in the room, not just here, but anywhere. Just like the fact that they may appear as strangers, but appearances are deceptive. You know, things don't exist as they appear, as we often say in Buddhism. You know, you really don't know if these have been friends in past lives, if they're going to be friends in the future in this life, if they're going to be enemies in the future in this life, if they're going to stay strangers. How can they, do you have any control about any of those things?
You don't have to let them stay a stranger.
Yeah, them being a stranger is a choice. It might be their choice, maybe your choice, but that's something we definitely have some, what's it called, agency about. Not a new word that they, I mean, that's a word they use a lot these days, agency. They've taken my agency. So anyway, when we think about equanimity, these are the kinds of things we want to kind of have in our minds, is that in spite of the differences in appearance, perhaps the differences in the countries we're from, the differences in our language, the differences, you know, blah, blah, blah. We can go on and on and on. But we're all human. You know, whatever room you're all in the same room. You know, there's got to be some commonality there. It doesn't take much to think, everybody in this room wants happiness, doesn't want to suffer. You can also probably guess they don't know what they're doing in getting their happiness. If you're like me, we're doing our best and we're not doing it, very well most of the time. So, these are things we can think about, take the time, because this is like an analytical meditation. You don't have to sit formally. You just have to take the time to think. And not to just think about what you're going to do later, what you just got done, what you want to do, what you're going to eat, what you blah, 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 blah. You can think about others. Have a curiosity about others. Recognize how we may look very different. We may act very differently, but we are not that different. Or you may come to a different conclusion. Boy, I'm nothing like anybody else in this room. That's, that's up to your mind. So what's the point of that? The point is that we have a tendency to either not notice people at all unless we think they can do something for us, or unless they just immediately appeal on sight, where we're just like, oh, that looks like a good person to sit next to. How many women choose who they sit next to on a bus or a train or a plane? Or do you just take the first seat that's available? Most of us pick. How many people have ever put something in the middle seat hoping no one would come take it? We knew purses had a reason, huh? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure. Yeah. We want to kind of shift, because what is that mindset? That mindset that says, oh, maybe if I put this here, the plane won't really be full and there'll actually be an empty seat here. What is that all about?
Antisocial.
Well, that's, me. It's what I want. And I'm going to do things to try to make it happen because I'll be happier. That's the mistake we make continuously. It's thinking that happiness is about getting what you want, instead of recognizing we're really not really that, we're not strangers and we need each other.
Looking at the face, paying attention to saying hello.
Yeah. Making contact, recognizing that we're interdependent and that there are things. I was in the waiting room the other day for, getting my annual blood drawn kind of thing. And they were really behind. They come out and, not looking at me. And we're all going, I don't have a number. I mean, every single one of us who didn't have a number wanted a number. And then we were cranky, and when they were back in, when it was just us waiting, and it was getting, and I was a participant, totally a participant in this, like, well, they send us an email yesterday saying if we don't show up, they'll charge us $50. Can we send them one back if you don't if you don't take me on time? I'm going to charge you, $100. So anyway, and I was thinking about it, and I'm thinking, okay, this could get. And some people left when the person came out and said, well, I'll send someone out in a minute to give you all numbers. Don't worry, you'll all get a number. Well, that wasn't satisfactory, so he left. Okay, this is a little ridiculous. So I just decided to say, I bet you we've all got the hangries. Is everybody fasting for this? And it really changed the energy in the room. It just became this kind, and then we were all the same. We were all waiting for this stupid blood test. No one's looking forward to it, and everybody's fasting, and we're all waiting and don't know when. And if our appointment's going to account for anything, like if they just going to hand out the numbers like willy-nilly, or are they going to go, hey, your appointment was first, because there was someone there whose appointment was at 1, and this is 11. So anyway, but this is something I almost never do. is try to change the energy in a room and try to just say something to a bunch of strangers. It's not something that comes naturally to me. It's kind of, I'm a nervous person. It's not something I do. But it was really nice to discover, oh, it's really true if you make the effort, even a little tiny effort. And if in my case, if you ask for the Buddha's help, you can nail it and actually say something that breaks the energy in the room. And we weren't cranky after that. Not due to me, but due to everybody's cooperation with, oh yeah, we need to relax here, because we can all leave. I mean, that's an option. So, but I think it's that recognition that we're all in the same boat is very, very helpful. And that's a lot of what thinking about equanimity is about. We all want the same things. We all want to avoid the same things. We all don't know what we're doing. We have different opinions about how to do it, But it's always okay to feel compassion for people suffering and feel love, wishing them to be happy. That's pretty much an appropriate response in any occasion. But it takes a few moments of thought to land in that spot. So those are the kinds of things when we're sitting quietly, instead of waiting, we can be engaged with our minds, trying to see if we can use it to help overcome our habit of self-cherishing. So that's the topic of today. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's almost, we changed the clock in here, so I couldn't use the excuse that it's 12:30 to quit. All right. So I didn't hear that. All right, so let's say our prayers along the same line. So the 4 immeasurables are on page something, 34. I've gotten very dependent on the screen. I'm forgetting the numbers. And those who are reading the text, please wait for the people on the screen to catch up, since it's slower. So, again, bring people to mind. You can just bring the people to mind in this room, and know that outside of this room, there are more people. And outside of those people, there are more people. And the whole planet is covered with people. And they're covered with animals, covered with pets, all sorts of sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering.
May all sentient beings be
Separable from the happiness that is free from suffering.
May
All sentient beings in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And now, those of you comfortable reciting the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer, it's on page 98. It's on page 98. Whoever's doing the screen. Thank you. It's a slightly different refuge prayer. The refuge prayer we were looking at a minute ago is what you do when you're on your own doing your practices. Okay. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay. So we're talking about what is a bodhisattva. And so this last week, just the first week, I feel like I've been here forever. So what was the measure of being a bodhisattva? What gives someone the name bodhisattva? Yes, Roy. They may not be on the path to enlightenment quite yet, but a bodhisattva is given to someone who has entered a path, because a bodhisattva is a name given to someone who's actually achieved that mind, the mind of awakening, the mind of bodhicitta, that wishes to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings 24/7 without effort. They don't have to work at it, you know, it's just present in every moment of mind. It influences every action. So you are right. They are on a path. They've entered the Mahayana path, which is, you know, just fancy language. So, but they're on their way to enlightenment. So you can see the importance of bodhicitta. And what is that telling you? So the definition is to, you know, it's the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. What does that suggest? What else does it suggest? That they need to display it in their actions? What does the definition suggest? You didn't know you were coming back to school, did you?
No shortage.
That is so true. There is no shortage of people who need help.
It's, but you need the wisdom to really be able to help everyone.
Yeah, what tells you that?
What tells us that that's required?
Well, the word enlightenment.
I don't quite know what.
Okay, so enlightenment means a Buddha, a state of mind of a Buddha. What does that mean? Anybody?
Omniscience, wisdom.
Okay, omniscient, meaning they have no ignorance whatsoever. They actually know the minds of all beings at all times in every moment, and all things that are going on. Yep. Okay, so that's the wisdom, full understanding of how things actually exist.
They know what's needed to help.
How do they know what's needed? What else is perfected?
They know the minds of all sentient beings.
So they know exactly what those minds need in order to be happy. You know, what are their next steps, kind of thing. But that's all wisdom. What else do we need? We need to perfect all the good qualities, like compassion, you know, generosity, patience, joyous effort, my favorite, perseverance. All the good quality, all those qualities we have that we really don't want to abandon. You know, well, a Buddha mind has perfected them. There's no flaws in it. There's no attachment. There's no self-interest in it. There's no mistakes in it. You know, so that's what an enlightened mind is. And so it's saying, in order to benefit all sentient beings, I have to become enlightened. That we really can't help everybody until we know what we're doing. So, you know, it's encouraging us to think about the fact that, you know, so, I mean, this is slowly. You don't wake up one morning, you know, and go, looks like a good day to start my quest to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. You know, first we have to kind of like figure out how to have compassion for everybody. Because we all have compassion, right? We all know what that feels like, to have compassion. I'm not seeing any yeses. I'm just seeing blank stares. Okay. I'm going to take that as a yes. So I sort of don't have a choice because I can't go anywhere if nobody says anything. Okay. So we need to be able to move from compassion for those that we see directly that are suffering. We generally have compassion arise when we see someone suffering, unless what?
You don't like them.
We don't like them. And then we're kind of like, oh, too bad. You can remember yourself as a child. You might discover, oh yeah, I still have that mind, you know. So we want to get beyond that. And that's where equanimity comes in. It's recognizing that people we like and people we don't like change places. You know, we all know someone in our life, in this life, that we didn't like at all when we met. They're like kind of, and then they became best friends, you know, over time. You know, maybe we work together and suddenly, you know, you have some compatibility you didn't recognize when you first met. You know, how many people like their partners when they first met them? You know, often we don't. It's like, how much more time do I have to spend with this guy? Okay, you know, that first date syndrome. But it's just, you know, so we don't always know who we're going to like and don't like. And then they change. You know, you get divorced and then there's somebody you don't like. You know, unless you have children, then you're trying to work with that. I didn't have children, so I didn't have to work with that. So, missed opportunity. So we really want to see, how can I move my mind from having compassion for people I love, for people that I like, for my friends, for children everywhere in the world, you know, particularly those we don't know, because, you know, then we don't have to like them or not. Because the Eddie Haskells of the world don't bring it up in us. Yeah.
To have compassion for someone you don't particularly like, I think that's the word.
It is the hardest. So they recommend that you start with developing your compassion for yourself. That's recognizing that we suffer. That's the truth of suffering. That's the first noble truth. We want to recognize, the Buddha said we need to know that we do suffer. You know, so having compassion for ourselves, not pity, not idiot compassion, where you're encouraging yourself to, you know, do stupid things that are not going to help yourself at all, you know. So like, oh, I think I'll just have a 6th drink at the Christmas party. We need some wisdom with our compassion. Then we can work on compassion for our loved ones. And then finally, we work on, you know, well, actually, next is strangers. We work on compassion for strangers. And then finally, we work on compassion for people we don't like. You know, and the hardest being of those people we think threaten us, that we really consider enemies. And they're enemies in the world all the time, aren't there? Hi, Rebecca. Let's just bring attention to you. Thank you for that. Oh. So, you know, it's, how many people have self-compassion? Yes, that's a question.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
It's a difficult concept.
It's a different, why? What do you think gets in the way?
I don't know. It just doesn't. It seems like it should be something external for, you know.
Do you think our background in Christian religions has something to do with it?
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, some of us have I think have the notion that self-compassion is too selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's taught in a lot of religions. And I don't think that's what they mean in any of them. They don't mean that you don't have compassion for yourself, because what does compassion mean in Buddhism?
Wish that someone be free of suffering.
The wish that someone be free of suffering. Okay. We try to develop, and of course, with our loved ones, we actually not only have the wish they be free of suffering, but we'd like to help them achieve that, you know. And this is what we want to be able to start having for all sentient beings. You know. But it starts with self-compassion. That's a good place to practice it, because it's a really good place to spot when you're being self-indulgent. When you start off with like, oh, this is sad. And then you start rationalizing This means, you deserve a weekend off from the world, and you're just going to tuck yourself up into, all the Christmas movies on Hallmark or something. So we need to find out, what is compassion. When you think about the fact that what you need to reach enlightenment are the perfection of compassion and wisdom, or skillful means and wisdom. Practicing on ourselves is a good place to start, because hopefully we won't harm anybody else while we're practicing on ourselves. And then it's easy to transfer that to those we love. Or sometimes we work the other direction. Because we've been raised to think that maybe self-compassion is selfish, we might be much more skilled at having compassion for our children or our friends, or other people we know. So we have to recognize when we're feeling it for someone else, it's a good idea to kind of go, have I ever felt that way? Has something similar ever happened to me? So that we can remember, oh yeah, I suffer too. Because we want to learn that we want to get out of this. Our suffering comes from bad habits of mind. It's a result. So being able to step back and try to cultivate the genuine wish to be free of suffering. Not to have everything perfect. None of that, just to be free of suffering. Because we can do a lot about freeing ourselves from suffering, in the moment. Like when we're suffering in a room of a bunch of people with, who are waiting, to take that mind off yourself and onto others. I'm not the only one waiting in this room. I'm not the only one getting cranky about it. What can I do to help? So sometimes, like when I'm in the car on the way here, usually I listen to The Great American Story, I think. It's on NPR, something. Well, sometimes the stories are a bit tough, and so I have to turn it off, because I know that I don't want to carry that mind with me into this room, unless it's really just the perfect but sometimes they're getting, there might be a lot of anger in it, or a lot of, and it's just, it's not good for my driving, it's just not a good setting. So we have to know, oh, okay, I need to just turn that off. We have to do that with our thoughts.
Well, I find it really sitting here, and it's like the suffering and the victim comes together. And as a victim, do I have a right to be free of suffering?
As a victim, do you have the right to be free? I don't think I understand that sentence.
I don't quite understand it myself, but it's somewhere there.
Is it this idea that I deserve it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's another thing we want to kind of work on, is this idea, would you ever say a child deserves suffering? You're just a grown-up child. I mean, let's face it, we're really, a little bit of time in between, but, we really want to look at that. That's one of those thoughts we want to counter. Nobody deserves suffering. We create the cause for suffering. That's different than thinking we deserve it, because we want to be happy. We're not trying to create the cause for suffering. We're just mistaken about what is the cause of suffering. So it's like criticizing a child, well, idiot, if you keep doing that, you're going to, if you keep insisting. My brother used to take dares as a kid. So he's always falling off stuff and breaking his arm, stuff like that, and you really could have just, instead of worrying about the fact that he was in physical harm, and it hurting, you could just say, well, you're an idiot. You deserve this pain because you keep climbing up on barrels and walking across concrete. You're not stupid. So what do you expect? This is how we talk to ourselves sometimes. You know, we treat ourselves with incredible disrespect and loathing, you know, and a kind of an attitude of sort of like, well, you get what you deserve. No, that doesn't make us happy, does it? The Buddha would say, stop that. That's not skillful means. You know, we want to recognize the truth of suffering, and then we want to recognize the truth of the cause of suffering, and then we want to recognize it can end. And there's a method to end it. You know, and the method is our own, you know, development of wisdom and compassion in our own mind stream. So what are the kind of skills? So a bodhisattva, so we're talking about what would a bodhisattva concentrate on? They have something called the 6 perfections. This is when a bodhisattva is on a path. In fact, they've actually seen, they're already a bodhisattva. So they've actually understood the way things actually exist. And then they focus on 6 to 10 perfections, basically, which is just a, you know, a catch-all for things. So generosity is considered the easiest one, and that's one they start with. So they're trying to perfect generosity. They've been practicing it in order to even become a bodhisattva. So it's not new. Now they're just trying to practice it at the level that a Buddha would practice it. You know, so it's just, they're just refining it more and more and more and more. So, but for us, what kind of things, you know, when we blame ourselves or blame others for their suffering and say, well, you deserve it in our own minds, is that generous? So it's practicing the opposite of the state of mind we're trying to develop. Is it patient? No. No. We want to look at these things, you know, of really understanding that how we think is what leads us to suffering. And if we get really good at recognizing how we think, we can change how we think and lead, you know, have our thoughts lead us to happiness instead of this suffering, this feeling like I deserve to suffer. How can we make suffering helpful, useful?
By learning from it.
In what way? Learning from it.
Well, I mean, you learn from your mistakes. You make a mistake and you try to figure out how to not do that again.
Okay, so you try to figure out how not to do that again. What else can we do?
Liberate ourselves from suffering in the others.
I'm sorry.
Liberate,
I didn't hear the first part of your sentence.
liberate ourselves from suffering in others.
So it can help us, motivate us to want to liberate ourselves from suffering. Or when we see suffering of others, it motivates us to want to free them from suffering.
It's like first comes from the others.
Yes, one comes from the other. Yeah. This is another reason to look at the truth of suffering within ourselves. Is it really, you know, I remember, and I've used this example all the time, so I apologize for that. But I remember when my mother died, and I was 27, and I was just shocked at how painful it was. It was just amazing to me. It physically felt like somebody's ripping my heart out of my chest. I couldn't believe it. And then I couldn't believe this happens every day to people, and that we survive it. And like, we don't have a choice. Just keep living, right? You know, I just found that unbelievable. Oh. And so that was that kind of understanding, a little deeper understanding of the truth of suffering. No. Now, being able to go from that spot and then recognizing that others feel the same way, and isn't that sad? You know, that's one of the ways in which we're not strangers. We have the same kind of losses. You know. So these are the ways we can start to move from this somehow idea that we are these independent groups, you know, because it's usually just not just me alone. It's me and my loved ones, my family, you know, whoever you consider that, my friends, you know. But that, you know, it's really goes beyond that. That we really, and we're all in this boat together. And so the Buddha says there's a way out of this boat, you know, where we don't have to feel loss. We don't have to feel, you know, jealousy. We don't have to feel greed. We don't have to, you know, none of those things. And the way out is through developing this universal compassion, universal love, universal generosity, universal patience, universal, you know, all our good qualities, to treat everyone that way, including ourselves. You know. And this takes effort. You know, we can't just keep doing what we're doing. We need to look at how we're thinking. And then we need to be ready when we have some kind of harsh thought to counter it, or some selfish thought to counter it, you know, within a more healthy way. And that this is actually the path to enlightenment, because what is enlightenment? It's a state of mind. Right now, the Buddha said we're in the desire realm. So we have lots and lots of craving and aversion. You know, we have a craving to get what we want. We have a craving to be separated from what we don't want. And we're all wrapped up in that because it's all about me. You know, it's what I want, what I don't want. And we try to control everything out here to get that. And it doesn't work, does it? Oh. Listen. One who thinks it works. Maybe it does work. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Buddha's wrong.
Nobody's going to say it.
Well, do we have a suspicion? Because we keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an example, but you're right. I mean, we still do it.
We still do it.
Yeah.
So we need to recognize that when we tweak things, oh, let's make it a little cooler in here. Oh, let's make it a little hotter in here. Oh, let's make it, you know, whatever it is, you know, we are trying to control external things with the hope that it will make us happy, that we'll get what we want, and then we'll be happy.
Well, that's what makes sense.
But has it worked so far? No. So it actually doesn't make sense. And we need to keep challenging the way we think. Every time we think, oh, what's it? And I like my favorite next thought is, you know, oh, but it won't hurt. You know, what's the big deal? You know? Well, the big deal is you keep practicing the same habit and you can't get rid of it until you stop practicing it. You know, so you want to practice a new habit. What happens if I don't change anything?
Stop trying.
Yeah, you stop trying and you look. And you look tomorrow and the next day, 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 and you try to see, oh, if I quit trying to control everything, is there any improvement? What are you letting go of then? That desire to control. Do you think we spend much time thinking like that? Much energy? Or even thoughts like, if they just do what, you know, this could be avoided. So some of us have the habit of really thinking that look, if you just do it my way, everything will go better. I don't have to do that, but everybody around me has to. Oh, we don't make the connection that what we're trying to do is get everything to go the way we think it ought to go, because the way we think it ought to go will give us the maximum of what we want, and then everything will be fine. That doesn't work for anybody. People who are very, very wealthy and have lots of connections can make pretty much anything happen. They need a plane, they can, they don't own one, they can borrow one. They can just snap their fingers. And people, now, if you know any of these people, and we only know them mostly from the celebrity magazines, or they don't even have that, but whatever you do these days, do they appear happy? I mean,
Sometimes they appear happy.
Oh, I'm delightful, I'm beautiful, I'm, blah, blah, blah. Of course, they're still getting divorces. There's still custody battles. There's still arguments. They still have to sell their homes in order, because no, you can't have it, kind of thing.
For me, Elon Musk, he's looking more and more miserable.
Oh, yeah. And he's trying to go someplace else entirely, and he has the money to do it. That's working out.
He's homeless.
Well, what can we do?
Have compassion.
Have compassion. Have compassion, because this is an example. We don't really know what it is in his mind, but it's an example of someone who appears to be able to do whatever he wants, thinks that that's going to lead to happiness. So he does everything he wants, and it isn't working. And we can have compassion because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's mistaken. And then we can have self-compassion because we do the same thing. So according to the Buddha, or at least Lama Tsongkhapa, generosity there are four types of generosity. Giving material possessions, which is the type that we all are familiar with. Giving fearlessness by protecting others from danger. What's an example of that?
Well, I was walking the other day, it was dark. There were three little ducks, baby ducks, and they were sleeping in the dark, but the mother was there watching.
So she's protecting them. We see a lot of mother behavior. What can we do to emulate that?
Open your home to refugees.
I'm sorry?
Open your home.
Open your homes to refugees, to foster animals,
Children.
to foster children, lest I forget. Oops. I'm sorry, I've never been a mother. It's not the first thing I think of. So, okay. So, yeah. And how does training your mind to think like that? What does that look like?
The generosity, like fearlessness specifically, or
Mhm,
generosity in general?
Letting go of self-cherishing of your own safety, or being as concerned, just letting go of self-care.
Okay, I wasn't listening. I tried to like pull it out, but I wasn't listening.
So letting go of self-cherishing, like not wanting to get involved when you see something.
Okay, so that's a specific example. Like you see something happening, like there's a turtle or something crossing the road, and you, instead of wanting to, pulling over, stopping, trying to safely get out there and move it, you just kind of go, oh well, hope it doesn't get hit. Yep.
I think generosity is spontaneous.
That's where we want it to go. but is never going to get there until we practice it. You know, that's a bodhisattva's generosity is spontaneous, but we're not there yet. So we need to cultivate it. Good news is we have the basis. We know how to be generous. We can be generous. We are generous. So what we want to do is strengthen it and recognize there are different ways of being generous than we thought about, like protecting someone in danger from fear.
I think was it Isla who said that? Yeah. That made me think of something interesting so there's a lot of qualities that we want to have, the 6 perfections. And some people do spontaneously have 1 or 2 of those. Like we just know people that are always whatever the quality is, but it's interesting, obviously, or according to Buddha, that would come from habit from previous lifetimes. But it's interesting how one perfection may be so developed and not the others. Any thoughts on that?
Well, they say generosity is easy. Out of all the perfections, the reason why it's brought up first is because it's the easiest to develop. People with good conditions are the people most likely to be able to work on, developing these habits of, of becoming a bodhisattva, because they have free time. They have leisure. They're not worried about survival. They're not, we have good conditions. So people with good conditions have more resources to become generous, and and it keeps going. The more generous you are, the more resources you'll have in future lives. So the worst mistake that people could make when they're born with fabulous conditions and are very wealthy is to become miserly, because they're setting themselves up to be poor in the future, not having enough resources in order to develop that generosity. So, you're setting yourself up. But just in this life, how does it feel when we're generous?
Feels good.
Yeah, it's generally a pretty good feeling. Who was it? Mother Teresa? She said she thinks people should give until it hurts. I'm not sure I'd go that far, because what you don't want is to resent your acts of virtue. So that's where wisdom comes in, and it's trial and error, and you want to recognize when, okay, I could have been more generous.
That was my thinking when I say that generosity is spontaneous, because if I plan to be generous, there's usually another motivation.
Usually, but you could replace that motivation with, because I want to become enlightened to benefit all sentient beings. Yeah, because we do things with ulterior motives. That's okay. I mean, it's not like, even if you're generous with ulterior motives, it still produces resources in the future, but it will not get you to enlightenment. And it's going to make those other perfections really hard to get, like ethics. The second one's ethics, ethical behavior. And the basis of this, just if you have to boil it down, is what His Holiness is always saying: at the very least, do no harm. Because ethics is all about not harming.
Kendra,
So
Kendra,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I
didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh, please just jump in there.
Before you go on, if you could speak to, I think I'm a generous person, right? But I find that sometimes if I'm generous with someone and they don't exactly give me the exact
What you
thing
want.
back, then there could be a resentment on my part. And I was wondering if you could speak to a way to
You've set yourself up for that.
Yeah.
Because you gave with that expectation.
Right. So
Yeah, and so that's what
happens.
And then you're developing the conditions for anger to arise.
Right. So is there a way to minimize that, or?
Well, first of all, you want to recognize that that's why you give. We have to face ourselves, and just kind of go, oh my goodness. And this is how we learn. When that resentment arises after we've been generous, we kind of go, ooh, I wanted something. We might not know it in advance, but when we discover it, we really want to take that on. You don't go, I have set myself up here. It is not the other person's fault at all. She didn't sign a contract when I gave her the gift saying, of course, I'll reciprocate. And do we want our good qualities to be contracts, to be emotional contracts, to be bribery, emotional bribery? Think about all the characters in movies and stuff and books and stuff that you don't like. This is what they're like. They're manipulative. That's another word for doing things with an expectation. We need to face that. We don't have to feel terrible about ourselves. We need to recognize what's in there, what's getting in the way in that. What's the starting point for that expectation? Desire of what?
Self-interest.
Self-interest, getting what you want. The root of everything is this self-centeredness, thinking about you in every action you do. It is rare that we're not in there. That's the first, for me, that's the first thing I look at. Where am I in this picture? What is it? It might be pride. It might be hope for something in return. Those kind of things. It's just we need to be able to spot it because that's how we have to clean it up. Now we don't have to wait till we're perfect. It's not like, well, I'm just not going to be generous until I really want to be. Well, you're never going to get there. In the meantime, you'll be miserly. And that's not a good, then you're going to be overcoming that habit. So that's not a good plan. But we just need to recognize it, and then we need to work at it. Remember, you're giving this out of just because you want to give it to them. They may not give anything in return, and it's not required. And work on our mind that keeps hoping for something, because that's the mind of craving, and that's a suffering mind. Yep.
Also, you had said there were 4 types of generosity.
What would you like the other 2? Are you tired of this one? Okay. Okay. Giving love with the thought, may all beings be happy. What does that imply?
The lack of the contract.
Which is what?
Lack of attachment. It's love without its genuine wish of the others.
And since this is where we have to head, what does it mean we're doing now?
Practicing enlightenment.
Okay, I must not be wording this very well.
Letting go of our self-interest.
Letting go of our self-interest and giving love freely. Same thing with presence, Yep.
So I have a question. How do you balance that with like not being a people pleaser and being able to say no when appropriate?
Are we back to you?
No, because sometimes when you're a people pleaser and you keep saying yes, it gets to the point where you be so burnt out that you can't really help more.
Okay, there's no advice in here that says that you don't have limits. Eventually you won't have limits. So it's about, again, when you're being a people pleaser, it's all about you. You want them to be pleased with you. So you have to go back to that. You have to work with that. It doesn't mean, giving it all to somebody that, just, if you're going to give it, I'm going to take it, But it's about recognizing your responsibility in that is that you want to please people. That's all about you. It has nothing to do with the other person. And in fact, it's a setup for resentment. So that's what we had to face. So these are the things we had to face. Like if you realize that, you're all very loving to your family at the holidays, and it's because you want to please them all and you want them, and you never want to have those hard conversations, or you just want to have a good week, that's fine. We want to know what it is. The first thing we need to do is be aware of what we're doing, how we're thinking about it. And sometimes when we have those negative responses like resentment, or we get irritable, or blah, 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 that's a clue that we had some sort of expectation that's not being met. And we need to look at that and realize, oh, I think I'm paying a fee to get something. And that's not the case with our, generous qualities. Because nobody signs that agreement. How many people think, but they should? We need to really look and say, am I thinking that way? Am I thinking like, well, it's certainly not a good measure of a friend if they don't do that, and then we have to look at that. Am I expecting everybody to be the same? Perhaps you're a great gift giver, for example, or you're very generous with your time when people need help, all these different things. Not everybody's the same way, are they? But are the people who aren't exactly like you are they just, kind of mean, selfish people? Are they good at something else?
Yes.
Yes.
They're good at something else.
They're good at something else. Thank you, Jack. Good to get feedback, as you're going along. Out. Because I want to people please. So, yeah, that's a good point. This is the thing, when we're, and it isn't to say that when irritation or resentment arise, that can't be a clue that the relationship's not working for you. That can also be a clue. But the first, that it's just like, that it's all give and never take, kind of thing. That's possible. But it doesn't change the fact that your mind needs some work. The fact that this is what you're using as a gauge to determine whether you like someone or not may be faulty, and it may prevent your happiness in the future. So giving love with the thought, may all beings be happy, is as opposed to giving love with the thought, love me back. Wishing someone to be happy. My classic example, because of my history, is, you want your partner to be happy until he's happy with someone else. And then you don't want him to be happy anymore. That's not love. And giving the Dharma by giving teachings and sharing the Dharma with others. So those are the 4 types of generosity. So these all have in mind that becoming enlightened is the way that you remove your own suffering and then enable you to be able to help others remove theirs. So that's why it has stuff like that in there. So what is ethical conduct? The basic thing in Buddhism, sort of like in Christianity, we have the 10 commandments, I think, in Christianity. I'm really not well versed in all of it, but we have the 10 non-virtues, which are virtually the same thing. They're very, very similar. But at the heart of all of them is this idea, don't do harm. That harming others leads to more suffering. You'll never be happy that way. Yeah, but
So how does 3 or 4 of the non-virtues and commandments have only to do with the mind? How does that harm somebody?
because our actions follow the mind. That's why. So if our mind doesn't want to do harm, will you commit adultery? No. If the mind does not want to do harm, will you kill? Hmm,
Is it potentially by accident?
that's sort of different,
Or is
you know, because we can't, yes,
I
if
know
we,
it's a different type of karma, of course, but yeah, I was just.
well, I mean,
sure.
we can't control externals. Like we can get in a car wreck and kill someone, you know. So we do take, you know, we take chances. And the reality is we can't live on this planet without killing. But if your mind doesn't wish to harm and really is that, then you won't kill things just because. You might accidentally kill things because that's our karma to be on a planet where things die just by our presence. Now I have to think of all the 10 non-virtues. So there's another one of body, steal. No, that's not body. Yeah, it is. Stealing. So stealing, what does that harm? Oh, come on, people. How does that harm?
Stole from?
The person you stole from, are they happy?
No.
Okay. So it's sort of like, okay, we want to protect life, so we don't want to kill. We want to protect others' possessions, so we don't want to steal. We want to protect others' relationships, so we don't want to have adultery. Then we have 4 of speech. Lying. How does lying harm? Can we count the ways? That doesn't mean we can't be tactful. It doesn't mean we can't keep our mouths shut. You know, what we, you know, because of what's at stake. If someone comes up to you and says, "Does this dress make me look fat?" Is it necessary to answer that question honestly? Yeah, skillful means.
I like the color.
Yeah, yeah. It's always best not to directly lie. I like the color. Or you can even ask them, how important, what is it, you know, what are you trying, you know, what look are you going for here? You know? They say sexy and they look fat in that, you might want to kind of go, let's look through your wardrobe here. Let's see what other choices you
You
have.
always say it looks amazing.
It does. You can always say that. Yeah, it's true. You know, but as girlfriends know, sometimes we want more help than that. Terrific. Fantastic. You know. So, but, you know, lying. That's a tough one. Like that's one of the lay vows that you can take, you know, for the rest of your life, just of not lying. And you have to be really careful about that one, about whether you think you can really keep that. And the downfall of that is just lying about spiritual realizations, implying that you've realized emptiness when you haven't, or that you're some, you know, great yogi when you're not, blah, blah, blah. But basically you want to, you end up lying about that if you lie just in general. So you want to work on that. And by the way, the measure of stealing is, you know, obviously stealing of something of value, but who does it have to be valued by? The other person, a person you're stealing from. Doesn't matter whether you think it's valuable or not. What matters is the person who owns it, if they think it's valuable or not. So like people who like, back in my day, it was like photocopying at the office, where you're using, you know, for personal use, you know, which is, of course, you're basically stealing the paper and the ink and the, I don't know, the repairs on the machine, you know, all the pens, all the pads of paper, you know, those kind of things. So we want to think, you know, is my use of this being given freely to me to use this way? And it just depends. But, you know, that depends matters. Okay, lying, divisive speech. This is speech that you say to actually try to separate people who get along. I think teenage girls excel at this, you know, which is why Instagram's not always healthy. But say your best friend is involved with someone you don't like, but they're perfectly happy with this person, or appear to be, but you keep bringing up subjects to kind of go, really? You like somebody who would do this? That's divisive speech. And it doesn't lead to happiness. It separates people who are getting along. Harsh speech. Harsh speech is just speech that kind of startles people, or is, I'm really good at this one. Like you've got too much anger in your tone or something. And so, instead of just, I do it all the time when I walk in here. Oh, that's not right. Why hasn't anybody done this? Bad habit, very, very bad habit, because it harms people, scares people. It makes people feel like they've done something wrong. I mean, there are all sorts of reasons why it's harmful. Then the worst of all, according to the Buddha, is idle speech. Why is idle speech so bad?
Quantity.
It's how much we do it. What does it do? How does it harm others?
Wasting for human people.
It wastes their time.
Well, is that gossip come under that?
Yes.
Okay.
Levels. It probably comes under all the categories of speech.
I didn't realize this gossip. I always thought was part of idle talk, but I guess divisive speech,
Oh, they're also, it's partly waste of time because it's pointless. Yeah, well, and lying and harsh speech. Oh, there's just so much wonderful things about gossip. So, but wasting time. Now, this takes a little practice of, like, I watched a Hallmark movie this weekend, and at the end of it, I thought, wow, really, can you waste your time any better than this? It's like, this is, what the outcome's going to be. Even know what songs will be on in the background. I mean, like, really? And thinking that if you control everything, it's all going to work out well. It's really, anyway. I watch a lot of sports when I'm with my stepmom, because that's what she does, so she watches the basketball team for both, the city and her college. She watches football, same thing. She watches, the Saints football games and the Tulane game. She watches, what else? I think she's been known to watch even like Tulane baseball, which just amazes me. But anyway, so I watch a lot of sports, which is something I watched a lot of basketball when I was in high school and when I first moved to North Carolina, but not since then. So now I'm doing. So you have to really look. All right, here's this nun spending all these evenings watching sports. How could that possibly not be wasting time?
Comfort to your stepmother.
Yep, it's giving comfort to my stepmom. Companionship.
Decompressing.
No, it's definitely not that.
not relinquishment.
No, it's not relinquishment. Relinquishment usually involves something you like.
Isn't that generous with you?
It's generosity. So, I'm sorry?
Like showing understanding.
Yeah, by showing understanding, or just sort of like, I visit my stepmom because, she had 2 great marriages in her life that lasted over 30 years, and now she, is alone, and she lives alone at 95, she didn't have anybody to talk to. She loves conversation, and she likes conversations about, tough topics. She likes challenging conversations, so, it's like, it's what I can give to her is my time, and I let her decide how to use it. That's not in my plan, so attitude matters. Why you're doing something matters. So idle time, we don't want to get confused with, like, oh, I can't ever sit around with my friends chatting, Now you have to watch. What are they chatting about? Are you encouraging really negative behavior? Are you, blah, blah, blah. So it isn't simple in the sense of working on your own mind, not working on the minds of others, just working on your own mind, deciding, is this how I want to develop companionship with my friends? That kind of thing. And that's true of all these things, because it all depends on why you're doing it. I mean, some things is sort of, don't depend so much, but, killing things is generally, just negative. So, okay. Idle speech. But it's like, so me spending time watching a Hallmark movie over the weekend when I have nothing, how bored, that's like, how bored must she have been? Well, I have no excuse for that. That was a total waste of time. I have tons of Dharma books to read. I have tons of things to meditate on. It's absolutely, we can call it the power relation, it's a poor choice, but, there you go. But, we just have to see that. We don't have to then go, oh, what a bad nun. Who are you? And you're going to go teach somebody? Boy, you don't deserve that. Blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. It's about recognizing that was not a good use of your time. How can you do better? Without hating yourself, without any kind of feeling like, oh, well, and not feeling like I deserve to feel bad because I wasted time. That's not the point of it. The point is to kind of go, oh, use that information to be able to choose better. What are the last three? Mind. So the mind. What's the first one? Covetousness. I hate that word. Covetousness.
Say that again.
No, covetousness. It's wanting something belonging to someone else, or you covet. Is that a good description? Yeah. People covet their other people's partners. That's negative on all kinds of levels. But even just the mind of coveting someone else's stuff, and then what happens is that you come up with a plan to make it yours. Fortunately, and people with good conditions can usually just go buy it. Oh, I just love your new coffee maker. So covetousness, but that mind of craving, and then when it doesn't belong to you, that's a really dangerous mind. That's the mind that leads to things like killing and stealing and lying. I mean, if they're big things like, I want to run this country, get out. So it's just, but that mind that covets a certain outcome that isn't yours. Oh, I think I'll invade Ukraine. Make it mine. These things can have horrible consequences. Second one is malice. Hostility. It's the level of anger when you are just willing, it sort of embodies your being. And the worst level of it is indifference. Hitler showed indifference to all the people he had slaughtered. He hated them so much they just didn't even register as human beings. So, I mean, I'm guessing what was in his mind. I don't know what was in his mind, but that's the kind, but that's where it leads. So this hostility leads to things like mass murder. Let's just get rid of all the enemies. But where does that start? But how, so just describe a mind that you have that might end up with hostility.
Somebody cuts you off.
Cut you off in traffic. Yes, road rage. I know I've mentioned this before because I know the dangers of anger because I was such an angry person growing up. So if we don't watch our anger now, it gets bigger. It can lead us to things. And if you believe in life after life, we have time to become a mass murderer in some future life. If we don't work on our anger, towards others. That's, it's like the height of us and them. Makes sense? Or, because that's a really tricky one, and yet it comes up because where does anger start? Irritation. Well, but but our first clues that we have it within us, the seed of it, is things like irritation, impatience, frustration, all of those can become anger, where you want to harm someone. And in Buddhism, anger or hostility is defined as, the mind that sees the sources of their anger and wishes to harm them. So, it's extreme. It's not, not our everyday anger. But, those thoughts of like, I just killed that guy, that's exactly what we're talking about. And of course, that can lead to killing that guy. So checking that mind that gets, angry about something is important. That's where we can recognize, work with it with that kind of thing, like, okay, anger is a mind that suffers. I don't want to be angry. I might want change, but anger is just a state of suffering. So I want to reduce my anger, so that I don't suffer anymore. So that's a way we can help ourselves right away, is to work on recognizing these states of mind, like greed and anger and envy and miserliness, are suffering states. And so trying to counter them and develop their opposites is a skillful means, wise move.
If somebody has anger and want to help them avoid that, I've heard an idea of just overwhelming them with kindness. And to temporarily placate the anger.
Yeah, it can. If you recognize someone's very upset, and just acknowledgement that they're very upset can help. Letting them know, oh, I'm listening. But you have to find out what works for you and what works for them. And if we can't figure out how to do it with ourselves, we may have to work on that a little. So anyway, what's the last one? Covetousness, anger, what? Ignorance. Oh, ignorance. Yeah. That's just the root of, that's just this mind that does not understand how things actually exist. That's the, root of all our suffering, and we want to overcome that. And that's just this, basically, it's things like we think things are permanent when they're always changing. We think things are, they have the nature of that. Like that guy who's a jerk is a jerk. They don't just do jerky things. They have the nature of jerkness, and we hold people like that. We think, we do it sort of immediately. As soon as they do something jerky, God, what a jerk. And that imputation onto things as being a certain way, not a changing series of moments, is part of our ignorance. And that's something we have to work on. So now we've wrapped up the Buddhist path, so it's 12:25. All right. Perfect. So we can talk about these because these all have nuances to them, and this is, bodhisattvas are trying to recognize the nuances, recognizing when there's self-interest in something, and noticing that when you have resentment or fear or anger or craving, that those are not pleasant states of mind. And so perhaps we want to work on how we can reduce them. Okay. And we'll talk more about that kind of stuff. What do we need?
We have medicine Buddha Puja on the 27th of this month.
Which is a day after Thanksgiving weekend. That's Monday, after and we're not meeting on Thanksgiving?
No.
Okay, so it's a good thing to do after Thanksgiving, because we've just given thanks and then we can spread the merit.
And we have, Gladys is, Roy's here, though, we have on,
Full healing.
yeah, the 17th, yes.
That's the sound healing.
Yes.
Okay, we're also like, I think, I don't know if anybody's doing Discovering Buddhism, but it's starting something new, I think. I've totally forgot. Are we still zooming in with the Kadampa Center?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
That was Buddhist mind science.
I think individually, some people were connecting with.
Oh, I don't know. I'm out of the loop. So we'll have to talk about that.
But we have yoga on Tuesday nights.
Oh, that's
where my
right.
sister goes. So.
Yes, we have yoga and getting great feedback from that. So if you're at all interested in doing yoga, come check it out. Hernan is excellent. And how are you enjoying it?
I love it.
Okay.
He's a nice guy and he just finished his teacher training.
And he's doing this for the benefit of the center. He's not taking any money. I think there's a suggested donation if you'd like to, or you can go down the road and pay like $40 a class. So it's
up to you. It's called Skillful Means.
Medicine Buddha Puja is
It's
at
7.
7. Yes.
Yeah, but look, check well, I don't know if it's on the calendar, but it'll be on the calendar at some point. Anyway, all right. So let's
Yes, correct.
yeah, it's a
And then
Monday.
if you want to put it in your calendar, December 20th is the next
After that, oh my God, we're really thinking far in advance. That's good. We want to think about next life too, but you know. Anyway, all right. Oh gosh, good to see you guys.
Great to see you.
But,
All right, so let's celebrate by saying our prayers, and this is the part where we rejoice in our efforts at trying to do something positive with our minds. And we're going to, those merits will ripen in some form of happiness in the future. So now we want to make those wishes specific. So it's on the screen, or it's on page, whatever it is, 246 or 244. One of those two. 246. So take a moment to get your mind, think about what reason you came, think about wanting to benefit others. Just rejoice in your participation, your positive, the fact that you showed up, you made that intention, you showed up. And you've been thinking a lot about different things in different ways. That's the whole secret, is working with our minds. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creatures suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then our long life prayers for His Holiness. Page 246, I think, 44. in the land encircled by snow mountains. You are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then I think page 234, is that right?
Yes, probably.
This is a prayer for the quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who is the director of all the centers. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Victorious Losam, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer now. Now notice in this first paragraph or stanza, they are asking all the people that are, have worked on their minds, they're children of the victorious ones are bodhisattvas. The Buddha is the peerless teacher. Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are people who are they're on a different path and they've reached liberation. Victorious Losang, father and sons, that's our teacher, Lama Tsongkhapa, and his, so it's that spiritual. We're asking them for help for accomplishing this prayer. So if there's some important prayers you're making, that's the kind of way you could say it. You try to gather all the enlightened beings and all the holy beings up and then say, please join with my merits and help this happen. So anyway, okay. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam and glory for fortunate disciples. So the last three are all about Lama Zopa Rinpoche's qualities. Anyway, okay. Thank you very much for joining in. So it's always good to see your faces, if not your bodies, but it's always good to see your bodies and your faces. So y'all take care. Have a good week.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Terrible.
Bye, Don. Bye, everyone.